Hi guys, it's Linda here. So today I'm back for a book review for the buddy read with Rishika Mirchandani. So for the second book review that we decided to do together, we had to read Bridge to Terabithia. I actually watched the Disney movie as a child, so that's why that book ended up in my to-read list and Rishika picked it up. So that's why we are reviewing that book today. And I think it's a child book, so it's very beautifully written and at the same time it's like very simple, even so it's very complex. So it's like it has all those complex ideas seen through the eyes of a child who make them very, very simple. And I think that's very beautiful, the way it's written. So basically, Bridge to Terabithia, that's going to be spoiler. So it's a story of this kid, Jess, who grows up in the countryside. So all he has basically is like countryside way of life. So he's at the farm. It's extremely funny because there is so much in this book that look like my childhood. So Jess is at the farm and he's doing his course, and he's the only boy in the family, so he has to do more than the girls basically, and he's a little bit resentful about that. He competes with other kids at his school, and like he wants to be an artist, but because in his area life is a little bit difficult, so everybody sort of work hard for their money, and they have this concept of like the starving artist brought to them. So his father is not as accepting as Jess would want to. So you have all this sort of mixed thing where Jess is coming from. And they also have this, like I'm going to talk about the part with the TV later because it's very significant. So when I say it reminds me a lot of my childhood is because I grew up in a very tiny city. I was sort of the outsider, so I wasn't really like Jess. I was a bit more like his new friend, Leslie, basically, who arrived from the city. So I wasn't arriving from the city, but basically everyone around had their parents and grandparents and their great-grandparents going to the same school, so everybody sort of knew each other. And my parents just arrived in that city, so they didn't have their family there, they didn't have their long-line family there. So I was sort of the outsider, and everything around basically was sort of like Jess' school and everything Jess actually had around. And what I'm going to say is I'm going to talk about the TV part. Is like Leslie doesn't have a TV, and everybody, all the kids think it's terrible. Like, why the hell doesn't she have a TV? It's sort of very, very weird. What the hell does she do if she doesn't have a TV? And in my classroom when I was a kid, I was a guy who didn't have a TV. And everybody thought it was the worst thing ever. He couldn't watch anything, so we would talk about the TV program during school, basically, during breaks and everything, and he would never be able to participate. He had no idea who like the big TV person were. And that this book reminded me of it, because technically you see all those people who are just working their hard job for money. No matter what they do, it's for money. They just save all the little bits. And that's the life in the countryside. And you have Leslie's parents who actually deliberately choose not to have a TV because they think there is more worth in reading books or doing art or that kind of things. And when I was a kid, I was with that group of people. I was with Jess' friend who believed TV was good. And no, I don't have a TV either. So I just shifted from this group of people from the countryside to that mindset of Leslie's parents. And so when I was reading the book, it was just so significant for me to see all those little bits like fall up together, and how I went like through the evolution. And the other thing in this book that is very significant is how Jess is going to be changed by his contact to Leslie. So basically, this book is about two different worlds, like very different. You have the countryside style, and you have the like big city style that kind of go with each other. And everybody looks at Leslie and her parents maybe a little bit sideways because they're different. And Jess managed to befriend Leslie, or maybe it's more Leslie managed to befriend Jess for no particular reason. She just picked him and decided it's going to be him. And she teaches him everything she knows. So she doesn't really make him read the book she read, but she actually tell him the stories. And I think that's very childlike. A child would more likely like read something and discuss it at length and tell the story with all the little details that their mind can catch. And that was very significant. And then Jess would actually go into this sort of magic and fantastical world of Leslie, and actually, because he's an artist and he can draw very well, he would want to illustrate that. So she's like, instead of having him like drawing things that he sees, or like he was trying to be artistic with his hippopotamus, so instead of him actually creating that, he can see now a whole range of things he would never have imagined that she brings to his world, so that she makes his world completely richer. So the relationship between Jess and Leslie is very deep, because he actually brings her the security of having a friend in a sort of hostile environment, except from Jessie. She doesn't have friends. All the kids at school think she's weird because she's different. She doesn't have a TV. She reads. She went scuba diving, and everybody think it's really weird. Like, she is so different, and she doesn't see anything wrong about that, and she doesn't try to fit in. She's just going to be herself. And Jessie, by helping her, like going into the race with the boys, and actually when she win the race, or like following her and staying with her whenever she doesn't have any friends everywhere else, is actually helping her fit in this mold, while she is taking him out of it, making it unfit by giving him all the idea that she already has because of her reading and because of where she comes from. So you have this very deep relationship created between two kind of opposite people who still have something to gain with each other by the way they actually interact with other people around. It's like they form this, like Jess needs Leslie because he has this creativity and like artist side of him that is not accepted by anyone else, that he has to hide. And he needs Leslie because she's going to accept that, because that's a part of who she is already. And Leslie needs Jess because there is no one else around who actually would give her the time of the day, because she's just so different and her values are so different. So in a way, that's a very interesting on that side of the story. And then you have this teacher, so the music teacher, who is also different. And basically, she's kind of the gate for Jess before Leslie arrives. She's a gate that's going to accept his heart and show him that there is something different. When Jess says that he doesn't fit there and she also doesn't fit there, he's totally right. Like, she just, like, those three characters are kind of put into this setting while they are something different at the core. And so the fact that there is an adult helps somehow to kind of legitimize the fact that Jess could be different. Like, he probably learned that from a teacher, and that's what exactly happened. He showed her his drawing, and she kind of accepted that. So that's how the setting is put up. And then you have this whole bridge to Terabithia thing. And actually the bridge doesn't really happen. They are using a rope to sort of pass above the creek. And Leslie is fearless, probably because she doesn't know the danger of nature as well as Jess does. But because he's a boy and she's a girl, he thinks he's supposed to be like stronger and more fearless than her. So he doesn't actually teaches her really like the danger of the nature. And he just basically follow her, and he tries to sort of fit with her. He has this sort of low self-esteem, like why she's so great, why she isn't with someone else, why is she picking me up basically, and I'm a coward and she's so fierce. And he has all those little moments where he put himself down and put her on a pedestal sort of thing. So when the accident happened, it's kind of, I mean, it could have happened when he was around, it could have happened any single time, it could also have happened to him because he would just follow her. And I think that's why it's make it so easy to accept, because you have this danger that is built up, and you have Leslie who is totally oblivious to it, and you have Jess who's like showing himself as a coward for just thinking about it. So it's building up, and at the same time it's like you don't know if it's gonna happen or not. And when you get into it, it just comes as evidence that something is going to go wrong because everything has been perfect. But then you're just at the end of the book, like at the very, very end, and you don't have many pages. So you're like, okay, they're going to like actually find something like a Narnia style of thing. But no, that's the whole thing. When you first think about this book, a lot of people like, oh yeah, I thought it was like Narnia, but it's not. Because when you have this world of Narnia, you have this place where you enter and you're going to get to the world, and the world is basically real. You just are transported to a different world. Terabithia is not that type of world. In Terabithia, nothing is real. It's just a world of imagination coming from Leslie's mind. And so she gives that gift to Jess. But when she crossed to go there, there is nothing supernatural to save her. And basically when the accident happened, it just makes the story of every single kid ever. It's like it could happen to any kids. And it's like it's just so real because you don't have this magic happening anymore. There is nothing that's going to save her. And I think somehow Jess sort of realized that. He under a shock. And you can, like, the way the grief is put through, like the way people react to Jess grieving is also very, very real. Like, I was sort of crying at the end of the book. I knew what was going to happen because I read the book. Like, I watched the movie before I read the book, so I knew it was going to happen, and I was still just shocked. And when I read it, it was just so powerful. All the stage Jess goes through, on the stage the character around him go through as well. It's very real, basically. So yeah, it's like a sad ending. Like, it was a beautiful story leading to this very particular part which is very, very hard, especially like Jess is just 10 years old, so it's kind of a shock to have a 10-year-old dying. Um, it was just really a shock. And but you could still see that Leslie is kept alive by Jess. Basically, he, instead of just ignoring everything she ever created with him, he's just going to make it better and bring it to his little sister. He's going to like transmit Leslie's knowledge, transmit Leslie's imagination to his little sisters. And I think that's very interesting, and I think that's a very good, healthy way to deal with that sort of loss. So it was a very fantastic book. I really loved it. It was so beautiful from beginning to the end, and it's really worth reading. If you haven't read it yet, I recommend you read it. I'm sorry if you haven't read it yet and you didn't care about the warning sign. It's a bit of a spoil, because yeah, it was a really cool book, and it's totally worth a read. Like, I read it after knowing the story basically, and it's still worth it. It still took me by surprise. So yeah, if you haven't read it, go for it. And I'm going to leave the link to Rishika's review down below in the description. So go check what she has to say about this book. Don't forget to leave me your comment, give me a thumb up, and to subscribe if you haven't subscribed yet. I will have more book review coming, so stay tuned. See you next time for something else, and have fun whatever you read. Bye!